What's up, kinfolk? It's RJ Young. I am not on a step mill. If this is your first time watching Adapt and Respond, thank you for joining us here. We talk college football year-round. If that is something you're into, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, like this video, and answer the question in the comments below. Is Oregon winning an in-state recruit for Alabama, number one ranked player in Alabama this year, a sign of the times, a harbinger of things to come? What's it mean for Alabama? What's it mean for Oregon? I know I gave you a lot to answer there, but that's because I like reading your comments. So leave it in on Spotify. There's a comment section on Alabama. On YouTube, there's a comment section. I'm in there. Please let me know. We're also going to talk through which coach won the offseason. And I also want to have a conversation about which programs we expect to build on their success and which programs we expect to come back from what was a bad 2024. Again, if you're new to the show, we have an audio podcast on Apple and Spotify, and I am constantly sending out stickers to people who have left 5-star reviews on Apple and Spotify. If you would like a sticker, as we're going to get merch here pretty soon, probably not going to put stickers there. Go ahead and fill out that 5-star review and tell me about it in the link in the description of the YouTube video, and I'll get you that sticker. I don't plan to sell stickers because I think it's really cool that this is one way in which you can participate in the show and really show people your support, because you will have a sticker and they frankly will not. We're getting closer and closer to live shows like this one, the longer episodes with the segments that, resemble much more of the kind of show that people have been asking for, and get a little bit more in-depth in topics. And we're like 3 weeks away from playing college football. And it's my birthday. If you are listening on Thursday, July 31st, your man's is 38 years old, damn near 40. And I got to tell y'all, single black man of some means, be out here getting it. We might raise a little hell. I might have to throw up the hooks around somebody. The tongue might have to come out. George Clinton might have to get played. If you understand what I'm putting down, you understand what I'm putting down. And what is it that the kiddos say? If you know, you know. Yeah, all right. If you see your man's out and about, say hi. I get to meet some people doing some things, and I'm probably going to be out here, downtown Tulsa. Say what's good. I tell you what ain't in the state of Alabama, and it is watching Anthony Tank Jones, a 5-star, 6'3", 240-pound stud, commit to play at Oregon, which is wild when you think about just what has happened at Alabama since Nick Saban got up off of his perch and Caleb DeBoer, who apparently just isn't tired of losing Dan Lanning right now, took that spot. It's wild because we're looking at this. Ryan Williams going to Alabama had everything to do with Nick Saban, everything to do with the kind of wide receivers they had developed just in recent years. Matter of fact, I don't think there has been a better use of wide receivers over the course of the last decade from a team that was traditionally running the football below the Mason-Dixon line, which, again, we're getting to the point where it sounds like in a dome at night in October on a Friday, than Alabama, right? Alabama, who went from Mark Ingram, right, as a Heisman winner and runs the ball, but also from the moment that Nick Saban got Julio Jones to the moment that he figured out he needed a dual threat quarterback, we have seen wide receivers coming through Alabama and turning into monsters, right? Amari Cooper, I mentioned Julio Jones. That quartet of Jerry Jeudy, of Jalen Waddle, of Henry Ruggs, my God, Devontae Smith, just monster after monster coming through there. Ryan Williams is the latest in the series of those. But when I look and I see Naeem Offord is at Alabama, and now you have Tank Jones is at Alabama. Both those guys, I should say, play high school football in Alabama. Both those guys choosing to go way west to play at Oregon. Is this a sign of things to come? Is it really beginning to fall apart? And we get to ask this question because Alabama won 9 games last year, which for them might as well be 6, right? They don't play that at Alabama. And there's a lot of pressure on Caleb DeBoer to get this thing right. They allowed him to go get Ryan Grubb out of the NFL to run the offense once again. They got a new quarterback, Ty Simpson, going to have a new bell cow back in what we think is going to be pretty outstanding running back room. We'll see if Isaiah Horton can actually add another dimension along with guys like Cole Adams to what wide receiver core they have. And defensively, I expect they'll be better because Deontay Lawson knows what is expected of him. Damani Jackson knows what is expected of him. And I think the shock of losing Caleb Downs is gone, right? But getting Anthony Jones at Oregon, again, that's twofold. You kept that dude out of the SEC. You kept that dude out of Alabama. And you are adding to the defending Big Ten champions at a position where they have become known as a force, right? Jordan Birch, Mateo Uiagalelei, keep going down the line here. What is it that Tank Jones is bringing to the table, though? How about 18 tackles for loss, 16 sacks, and 84 tackles last year out of high school? My goodness, man. It feels like sometimes we come across these 5 stars and we talk about them so often that it becomes regular for us. But I keep trying to tell people the way you should view a 5-star or any guy that gets to commit and play at a Power 4 university is very simple. He's not the best guy on your block. He's not the best guy in your district. He's not the best guy in your state. He is the best player out of your school in a generation. And there are going to be people who will tell you when they first met that person or when they knew that dude was different. For me, it was Robert Meacham and Felix Jones at Booker T. And it was really difficult to understand just what the chasm of talent looks like until you see what, a bell cow back at Arkansas is doing to you in scout team. When Robert Meacham was so good that you put 2-3 dudes to one side and you run end arounds to him so you can get him the ball, and he still makes it happen. He's playing safety for you. Robert Meacham played wide receiver at Tennessee and for the Saints for some time. R.W. McQuarters is before my time, but that dude comes out of Booker T. Again, it feels like some of these high schools can pump them out, but each one of these dudes is that guy from the moment that they start playing football. And to prove the point, we're also talking about a 6A state champion in in Tank Jones. He also is more bang for an Oregon program that has been banging. What I mean by that is take a look at the 5-star plus that On3 uses, and you'll see this is last year was the most 5-star recruits they ever signed at Oregon in one class, right? With 3. And now they've got 4. It looks like that could end up being Ducks. So they go from the highest number of 5 stars they had in the class to the highest number of 5 stars they have in the class. And it feels like Dan Lanning is doing a great job. He's always been doing a great job. But I think really what we talk about with Oregon isn't the money and it isn't the talent. It's when are they going to break through and win their first national championship? And they keep getting close to that. They got a schedule this year that sets up for them to want to be good. I think when you look at what DeCorian Moore is going to add, Naeem Offord, who I mentioned, playing cornerback, Trey McNutt at safety, you have a core of young guys that can contribute right now and probably want to, who are also going to have to pick up the slack, right? There's no Evan Stewart. Dante Moore's coming into his first year as a starter. While I expect them to be pretty damn good at tailback, you want to see Malik Benson come on. You want to see Gary Bryant come on. Dylan Thieneman, I think, is the second best safety in the entire conference, and he'll get a chance to show that. You were able to keep a guy like Will Stein, who I think is one of the best offensive coordinators in the sport. Since he joined, they're 25-3 at Oregon. And people that know from Dan Lanning know they're going to be aggressive. They're going to come after you, and they're going to go for it on 4th down. They're going to apply pressure. And that is another thing that Tank Jones allows you to do coming off the edge, being this big. At 6'3", 240, it's not hard to see him growing another inch or 2 and then getting up to 260, 270, still playing at the edge position and making a true impact. Meanwhile, at Alabama, I got to ask, is this another sign of just how the cracks are beginning to show? I often say that programs take on the identity of their head coach. And Nick Saban's identity as a head coach was kill everybody, let paramedics sort them out. One of the greatest statistics in college football, I believe, to be, if you played 4 years for Nick Saban, you won a national championship. If you just stayed in school, which means that there is an entire group of alumni who get to say, I was at Alabama when we won the national championship, right? No program has made more college football playoff appearances and won more college football playoff national championships, 3-8, 8-3. You think about the Heisman winners they have, right? Heisman winner at running back with Mark Ingram, Heisman winner at wide receiver in Devontae Smith. You think about how many first-round draft picks they put out each and every year and how competitive they were in the Nick Saban era each and every year. After 2007 is canceled Christmas for the next 15 years, to say nothing of he went out on a very high note and very cool note of, yeah, we made the college football playoff. We damn near beat Michigan. We probably should have. But Jalen Milroe also led them past Georgia, which means Nick Saban got to go out with a win against Kirby Smart. Kirby Smart being really the only assistant that could go get Nick Saban. Everybody else has had a hard time doing just that, and he's since gone into broadcasting. And it feels like a lot of Alabama's identity, which is still there, is being questioned. And people are taking advantage of it. So when you get a guy like Tank Jones that wants to go on the McAfee show and tell everybody he's going to Oregon when he could play high school football in Alabama, it's going to be interesting to see how that goes for him the rest of this year. I mean, people are going to root for him individually, but they're going to look at him and go, you sure about this? You sure you don't want to flip to Alabama? And we'll see. But I think this thing is done. I think Tank Jones is a duck, and you're going to get used to seeing him play at a very high level. We come back. I want to talk about which coach, and maybe coaches, won the offseason, and I'm going to tell you why. Back on Adapt and Respond. Thank you for joining us here. We talk college football year round. If you're into that, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, like this video, and answer the question in the comments below. Which coach do you believe, head coach, won the offseason in 2025? I think you got a lot of good candidates here, as we've had a lot of movement like we expect the last few years. And we've also had some continuity, right? And I think you can make a case for many coaches here. Like, for instance, I would say Steve Sarkisian could make this list because he succeeded in keeping his staff intact and keeping the core part of his team intact. Those that could not go to the NFL chose, for the most part, to stay. Michael Taft is back, right? Arch Manning's going to take over at quarterback. CJ Baxter is like getting a guy out of the portal because he was hurt all last year. Christian Clark, too. Ryan Wingo's a year older, didn't hit the portal. Anthony Hill's coming into his own. I think that you can make an argument for Texas staying together as and healthy. Steve Sarkisian winning in the offseason. You can make an argument for Penn State. They got Jim Knowles after losing Tom Allen. They're able to, again, like Texas, keep a lot of the core of that 2024 team in Penn State, right? We're talking about Nick Singleton, Katron Allen, Drew Aller, Denai Dennis Sutton, names that you're getting to know, like household names, very quickly and soon. But for James Franklin, the offseason has never been the challenge. It has been beating top 5 opponents. And I'm going to continue to hit this until it changes for them. You can't be 1-15 against AP top 5 opponents and expect that not to be the headline for your season going into a year where people are picking you to be the number 1 team in the country, to win the national championship. I think James Franklin wants it. And you can see that in the coaching. You can also see that he wants a tough team. He'll choose to run the ball whenever he can. He'll punt it and ask the defense to go play ball for him. We'll see, right? Drew Aller's got to grow up. And I mean, he's got to stand up in the biggest moments. Can he do it? He hasn't been able to do it so far against class football teams. Maybe that changes in 2025. I think LSU is also a team that you could say made this list for what Brian Kelly was able to get out of the portal. They're so friggin' fast on the outside. They got speed everywhere. We're thinking about Barian Browning. We're thinking about Nick Anderson. A couple guys going to be able to take the top off for a 4,000-yard passer in Garrett Nussmeier. Caden Durham is going to be a dude at tailback. Blake Baker has them Weeks boys back, and Harold Perkins, right? Getting Harold Perkins to return to LSU can't be overstated. And if you put him back at edge and just let him go destroy people, I think that's going to be best for all involved. They had a young secondary last year. That's an experienced secondary this year. They expect to compete for a college football playoff spot, if not the SEC championship, because remember, that is the reason that Brian Kelly left his job at Notre Dame to go to LSU. He thought that he had a better chance of winning the national championship as a head coach in the SEC, particularly at a program like LSU, where money's not a thing. You'll have all the money and all the support you need to go win. And they've been able to do this with 3 different head coaches in 2 decades. That is about the program. That is about the university. Nick Saban, Les Miles, Ed Orgeron, 3 dudes that could not be more dissimilar. And yet they were given the resources they needed to win it their way. And that's exactly what happened. I think that can happen with Brian Kelly in 2025. But the guy that I want to linger on here, that I think is at the top of the heap, is Curt Cignetti at Indiana. And there's one really simple reason for why Curt Cignetti has won the 2025 offseason. We're talking about Indiana as a really, really good football team. And we don't care that he turned the roster over. We care that Curt Cignetti walked in December of 2023, told people at a cellar dweller, at a program that has been as useless as useful as a chocolate exhaust on a Formula One car, to the Big Ten, that all I do is win, right? In the DJ Khaled voice of Google me, I win. That's why you want to come play for me. He went and got the guys that he needed, put them together on a team, called them the Hoosiers, sent them out in the battle, and those dudes won 11 games at a program that had not won 10 in a single season. A program that was as much a joke in football as any in the sport. And they're quickly becoming a team that people are going, hey, you're just going to have to deal with them. They're here now because they got the guy. Again, your program takes on the persona of your head coach. Curt Cignetti's persona is confidence. Earned, by the way, confidence. The man who won 11 games or more in 4 out of the last 6 years. James Madison, right? People going, oh, it's James Madison. But they showed up and were monsters right away. Right away in the Sun Belt, what they call the little SEC, right? Making it happen. Gets to Indiana, and his only losses are to the 2 teams that play in the national championship game. He's got another good veteran quarterback in Fernando Mendoza, 3,000-yard passer. He added guys like Roman Hinby to the list. Did he lose Donovan McCulley to Michigan? Yeah, he did. But he also returns 11 of the 16 starters from last year. This is a team that can win 11 games again. This is a team that we expect to compete toward the top of the Big Ten again. Now, they may be joined by Illinois, or they may be overtaken by Illinois. But you're going to talk about Indiana in the same conversation with Oregon, with Ohio State, Penn State, because you look at also their schedule, and it's choice. It's choice. You got to go to Oregon. I think that's the toughest game on the schedule for Indiana. There's every reason that Oregon and Indiana could be 10-win teams and could be playing in the Big Ten championship if things go their way. Again, Ohio State is huge over there, massive, but they have not won the Big Ten championship since 2019. They'll make the college football playoff, but they ain't got to win the damn thing, right? They ain't got to win the league championship to get in a way that, say, Indiana didn't have to either. They lost to Ohio State, and they still saw their names called. Did that mean they had to go on the road to play a Notre Dame team in the national championship game? Yeah. But it was that, wasn't that dissimilar to what Ohio State had to do last year. They just got to host the home game. Now, if you put Indiana in that home atmosphere, what can they do in Bloomington? Can they make a run? I don't think it is too much to say. I'm impressed. Like, I truly am. We're also at a very cool part of college football. As people want to decree name, image, and likeness and revenue sharing and what happened to an education, I'm saying, have you seen how volatile the sport has become and how much fun that has made it? Freaking Indiana's good because they could use the roster turnover to their advantage. All they had to do, as if it's simple, is identify the guys they needed and get them into Indiana. That's it. You got money there. You got people that wanted to invest in the program, and now they have every reason to, and they want to stay there. Meanwhile, Michigan State's still trying to figure it out. Meanwhile, Wisconsin is trying to figure it out. Iowa, they're back to figuring it out. Purdue, in the bottom. Minnesota back to trying to figure it out. Here's Indiana right here, right? Right here, right now. Gonna be a lot of fun to watch them play. We come back. I want to talk about which program is most likely to bounce back from a crappy year. And a couple of them are going to play each other in the non-conference. Back on Adapt and Respond with me, RJ Young. If you're new to the show, thank you for joining us here. We talk college football year round. If you're into that, hit that subscribe button, like this video, and answer the question in the comments below. Which team do you expect to bounce back from what was a substandard year by their measure? And I think there are a handful of programs that fit for this. Some of them because they can't get any worse, and some of them because it was just really odd to see them have a down year. I think at the top of the list, you can go Florida State, right? 2-10. That ain't going to cut it. But also, we don't expect Florida State to be that bad this year. We expect them to flip it around in a quick, fast, in a hurry. They're embarrassed. And because they're embarrassed, they're mad. And they're mad, they want to take it out on somebody. They get to play one of these teams that I'm going to talk about a little bit later that I think has got a little bit more to worry about than Florida State. Mike Norvell turns over the staff, right? New offensive coordinator, new defensive coordinator, tagged his mentor, Gus Malzahn, to run the offense, brought in a guy in Tommy Castellanos who's going to talk his noise. I don't know that Florida State is going to compete for the ACC championship because at the top, it feels like it's Clemson. SMU is going to show me that they're good or bad, right? North Carolina will find out real quick, but through the middle, Syracuse is good, right? Miami is good. Boston College is going to be tough. Georgia Tech is going to be tough. It's not going to be as easy as it might have been for Florida State in years past to move up to the top, but I do expect them to flip this thing around from 2-10 to bowling, right? And I think bowling is the bare minimum that you would expect from Florida State. Is that enough to keep Mike Norvell in his seat? We'll see, right? Because it's getting kind of hot there. I would also add Kansas. They had an abysmal first half of the season last year, but that was very Lance Leipold-like. You had a Jalen Daniels that wasn't himself until the second half. And when they got to the second half, Devin Neal's running over people. I think you can expect them to flip it around. I think really the teams that fit this are ones for which we're like, you are perennially really great. What happened last year? Why this odd year? Wisconsin fits the bill for me, right? Wisconsin is better when they run the football. Surprise, surprise. When they got away from running the football, they lost football games. When they ran the football, they were really good and had Oregon on the ropes. Again, they're also dealing with, backup quarterback, which I think had a lot to do with it. They lose Tyler Van Dyke very early in the season. But Phil Longo's offense never felt like the kind that fit Wisconsin's identity. And sometimes that's what it's about. Are you playing to the program's identity? Georgia runs the ball and plays defense. Wisconsin runs the ball and plays defense. When you try to be somebody you haven't been, it's affecting, right? And I think that's affecting at all levels. It's not just the players on the field, the playbook, coordinators. It's secretary. It's the janitor. It's the students who have this idea in their head, and they're also doing their jobs a little bit differently because they got this idea in their head. I think it's emotional intelligence is what we're feeling when we watch Wisconsin play, when they watch Wisconsin play, right down to jump around, right? How's Payne? Y'all should have let that happen, dog. Like that, I hate that too. But since 2022, basically since the Oklahoma State game, Wisconsin's 12-0 when they run the ball for 150 yards or more. They are 13-1 when they just hand the ball off 35 times more a game. Feels very cut and dry. It's because it is. So when the offense last year rushed for its fewest yards in the 20th century, 1,844, that's a sign of why you're bad. Like that's the fewest yards that Wisconsin had rushed for in a single season since 1995. And every year that they got a tailback, they got a guy from Melvin Gordon all the way back to Ron Dane, Monty Ball, James White. They've been really, really difficult to beat. And I think in his heart, that's who Luke Fickell wants to be. Having played the nose at Ohio State, having been defense coordinator at Ohio State, having seen what it's like for an Ohio State team to run the ball down people's throats and play defense, I think he's going to try to get back to that. And that's why he brings in Jeff Grimes, who had the offense at Kansas last year. Devin Neal had 1,000-yard rushing season. You're going to identify your tailback. You're going to feed him the rock. You're going to make it happen. I think making it worse is, you're averaging just 20.8 points per game in 2024. And we're talking about the fewest points that a Wisconsin team has scored since 2004. But that year was also a magical year for them. They won at Ohio State, a ranked Ohio State, and a number 5 Purdue. That's how long ago that was. But that was that. I mean, had this been 2024, they'd be 9-0, right? But that's not just 2004, it'd be 9-0. But that's not what it is, right? We're expecting them to get back to being who they are. The team that I think we should be talking more about in this instance is actually Utah, because Kyle Whittingham suffered his first losing season since 2013 at a program that has been a perennial winner. Now, going 5-7 is one thing, but they also had quarterback problems. Cam Rising was never healthy, and Isaac Wilson never really figured it out. So what do? You watch your offensive coordinator go away, and you go recruit an offensive coordinator and a quarterback, not unlike what has become in vogue. You go get the pair. And what he got was Jason Beck and Devin Dampier. A bad Lobos team, but a prolific Lobos offense. They put up 33.5 points per game last year, which ranked 24th in the country. And they put up 484 yards per game. Wild. Dampier himself averaged 7.5 yards per carry, rushed for 1,166 yards, threw for 2,768 yards, 27 total TDs to just 12 picks. Those numbers are Heisman level in the SEC, right? In the Big 12, you're looking at a guy that could be your offensive player of the year. It's also getting away from the kind of offense that has become synonymous with Kyle Whittingham. We want to own the line of scrimmage. We want to run the ball. We want to play defense. With Dampier and Rayshawn Parker, a really great tailback transferring in from Washington State, you're going to have opportunities to run the ball, but is it going to be the kind of forceful, beat them up, beat them down, run the football that, again, we think comes from Kyle Whittingham? I think it is, but I think you're also going to see guys that are taking deeper shots. Now, this might be a case of just what I talked about with Wisconsin. You get too far away from your identity, it can come to bite you and hurt you. But 5-7 is just not who we've expected Utah to be. As a matter of fact, I think Dampier might be the most talented athlete at quarterback that Utah has had since Alex Smith. And that, it's a long time ago. But Urban Meyer's coaching at Utah. But you understand what I mean here. Let's see just what Utah is capable of with that guy at quarterback and with that offensive coordinator and Jason Beck calling plays. Last team I think we need to talk about in this instance is Alabama. They got to bounce back from last year. I think there's more pressure on them than any other team because they missed the college football playoff when it expanded to 12 teams. That used to be, you pencil them in. Matter of fact, going into the season, we would have penciled them in. And after the first 4 games, that's what it should have been. They beat up on Wisconsin, a team they got to play. They're going to get an opportunity to beat up on Florida State this year, a team they got to play. But they are able to beat a number 2 Georgia and then lose to Vanderbilt, lose to Tennessee, lose to a bad Oklahoma, and lose to a middling Michigan. If you win 2 of the 3 games you lost, you're playing in the playoff with 10 wins. People are going to put that team in. And I think the Nick Saban tax is being applied to Alabama. That is to say, he ain't coaching there. So you don't get the benefit of the doubt in the way that you might otherwise. I think if Kalen DeBoer was head coach at Alabama in 2023, you would have put Florida State in that spot and not Alabama. Because it's Nick Saban, you know what you're going to get on the football field, and that matters. It does. It's unfair, but that's why you want a Nick Saban. So you get that unfair advantage, and that's what they thought they were getting in Caleb DeBoer, a guy who had lost all of 12 games and won over 100 as a head coach. Really need to get that figured out quick, fast, and in a hurry. And I hope they do because sport's pretty cool when Alabama's pretty good. We come back, I want to talk about the program that is most likely to build on its success from last year and why I think it's an SEC team that not enough people are talking about for reasons that got everything to do with potential. Back on Adapt and Respond with me, RJ Young. If you're new to the channel, thank you for joining us here. If you're listening on the podcast, thank you so much for that too. Leave us a 5-star review, fill out the form in the description on YouTube, and let me send you a sticker for that. I want to talk about a team that I believe can build on its success from last year. What we might think of as having a banner year. Earlier in the show, right, we talked about Indiana and how I think Kurt Cignetti won the offseason. We talked about Penn State and how building on their success would just mean, winning a top 5 matchup, particularly against Ohio State or Michigan. If Michigan is ranked in the top 5, Ohio State probably will be when Penn State plays them. But I think the programs that I have an opportunity to best build on this are in the SEC. No, not Oklahoma. Oklahoma didn't have a successful season last year. So let's go ahead and put that one down, okay? It's not Auburn because they didn't have a successful season last year either. Hugh Freeze is very much on, he got his ass in the jackpot. For me, it's Missouri and South Carolina, okay? Missouri, who has turned into a force in the Eli Drinkwitz era, back-to-back double-digit winning seasons, 2013, 2014, and then 2023, 2024. You've also got Bo Pribula at quarterback. So you're going to be a little bit more athletic. I don't know if you're going to be as good down the field. Brady Cook was really great for you. And you're able to go get guys to help you with the loss of dudes like Luther Burden. You're looking at Ahmad Hardy, who's coming out of ULM and really was the straw stirring the drink down there as a true freshman. He rushed to 1,351 yards. And your defense allowed just 20 points per game and gave up 300 yards a game, 318 yards a game. You get a guy, Kevin Coleman, who was one of the best players on a bad football team, Mississippi State last year, 932 yards receiving. I think he's your Luther Burden. He's your Theo Weeks going into this year. If Pribula can add a running dimension to the offense, take a look at the schedule, guys. I mean, they got a whopping 8 home games. And then we're talking about at Auburn, at Vanderbilt, at Oklahoma, at Arkansas. That should be a playoff team. It should be. It should be a playoff team. Thinking about South Carolina with Lenore Sellers going into a year in which some people believe he can be the first quarterback off the board. The closer we get to the NFL draft, the more we think that Arch Manning is going to stick around for another year. But after winning 9 games, there's no reason to believe they can't win 10. They beat a Clemson, right? They're beating up on Oklahoma. They had LSU on the ropes. They can go and win against the best teams in the country. They just need things to go their way, which means Nick Harbor got to develop into somebody. He's got to develop into somebody. I think Lenore Sellers is going to have every opportunity. Shane Beamer's going to put him in a great spot. But it's going to be about, can you get the ball downfield, and does Lenore's have to be some version of Cam Newton for this team to be good? He can be, but that's the comp, right? At the far end of the ceiling for South Carolina is that 2010 Auburn football team, where it's going to be Lenore Sellers and parts that propels you to a national championship. But we're so far away from that, and the sport has gotten so much more difficult to play that we'll just have to wait and see what that is. I believe they're capable of this. But I'm also looking at, inside of this, odds to make the college football playoff among the SEC. South Carolina's getting plus 550. Missouri's getting plus 825. For those of y'all that do the betting, that's pretty good value. You take that, especially when you're looking at Auburn at plus 300 and Tennessee at plus 300. Oklahoma at plus 445. I can see 4 teams from the SEC making the college football playoff. That 4th team is what we're talking about when we talk about South Carolina or Missouri. If we're talking about teams with best odds to make the playoffs as that 4-team in and probably go on the road to play a Big 10 team or a Big 12 team, you got to include those teams. Also got to look at Florida, right? Like there's what? Texas, Georgia, Alabama, that's 3. LSU, Ole Miss, A&M, that's 6. Auburn, Tennessee, Florida, that's 9. Oklahoma, South Carolina, Missouri. That's 12 out of 16 teams with odds from circa at least to make the college football playoff. Other teams just not on the board. That Auburn one is the only one that I think is kind of squirrely. That's it. Everybody else, I can make a really good argument for why they can make the playoff, but it's going to be the margins here. And I think the margin is going to be home field advantage. That's why I'm high on Missouri. It's going to be, do I have a better athlete at quarterback than you? Lenore Sellers. Can we limit the mistakes that keep us from winning these one-score games, right? It's going to be huge. That's Utah in the Big 12. They are like something like 2-9 over their last, or excuse me, 2-7 in their last 9 games in one-score games. You can flip a couple of those into wins, and all of a sudden we're talking about you nice, and we're having nice things to say, and it's a lot more fun. The last thing I'm going to say about the Missouri, South Carolina, we expect them to improve on their success, is somebody's going to have to take a step back. Somebody always does. Is it A&M? Could be, right? Is it Ole Miss? Could be. If Florida doesn't have a healthy DJ Lagway, you won't have to worry about them. But a healthy DJ Lagway puts them in the conversation for the FCC championship. That's how important he is. Matter of fact, I think DJ Lagway is as important to Florida as Lenore Sellers is to South Carolina. You're just a different football team. You know, it's the Florida State Jordan Travis effect. We no longer think you're good if that guy's hurt. That's what's going to have to happen. Bo Pribula is going to have to be good. He's going to have to reach the potential that he showed. 242 yards rushing at Penn State. You got to show a little bit, but you didn't get to show what you're made of. Now he gets an opportunity to show what he's made of. And I can't wait to find out just how good he can be. And if Eli Drinkwitz is just going to be talking more noise and Missouri's never going to be nobody. Possible. That Arkansas game ought to be fun. You know, that Oklahoma game is going to be fun. Old Big 12 matchup. It's going to be a lot of jawing. I think quietly, people don't really understand Missouri and Oklahoma kind of hate each other. Oklahoma doesn't think Missouri's any good, and Missouri believes that Oklahoma's overrated. But when the two come together, you'd be amazed at how much animosity there is. Can't stand them. They can't stand us. I remember the Chase Daniels, Jeremy Maclin years. I remember them being all Brody and whatnot. It's fun. All right. That's going to do it for this episode of Adapt and Respond. If you like the longer shows, let me know that in the comments below, and we will see y'all on the flip side. Doses.